Leaderonomics presents the spookiest psychology-based educational show on the internet. Psyched, Spooktober edition.
Hi everybody, welcome back, and we are now in the third episode of Spooktober, and with that, Roshan has disappeared. I'm just kidding. We have an exciting guest today, and I'll be your main host today instead of Roshan. So for those who are tuning in, welcome back again. And today we're going to talk about workplace trauma, right? So I've been scrolling in like LinkedIn and also Facebook a lot of times, and I read a lot about stories of people having a lot of trauma, whether it was a toxic boss, a toxic environment, people who have colleagues who gossip about them. We heard a lot of this, and sometimes we don't realize how deep it can be, right? So for example, if you talk like, it's normal, your colleagues are going to play politics, they're going to, your boss is pretty going to micromanage you all the time. But if it constantly happens and it has a detrimental effect on your health and your mentality, and people wanting to kill themselves because of these things, then we consider those things as trauma. So let's invite Patrick. He's our organizational psychologist. He's from Leaders of Tomorrow Institute. Welcome, Patrick, again for this episode. We're so happy to have you on board. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, and maybe let me ask you a question, Patrick, since we are going to put each other on the spot for this episode. Do you have any stories of workplace trauma, whether you've experienced or you've seen it before?
I think that's why I work for myself because I have a lot of trauma that I've noticed, seen either to myself or to other people. I think the workplace is full of trauma and untold trauma on top of that. They're not always spoken. And I know, and of course, we going back a few years back where it was impossible to talk about trauma. There was no place to it. The workplace was made as being tough, being a feat. And if you couldn't do it, then you were not a feat. Simple as that. And they make you feel more weak, by saying that instead of addressing the problem. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't know where to start. I don't think we have enough time if I go through my story, but yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Patrick. I think many people who are, worked a number of years would have experienced some kind of trauma, right? Whether it's a little or a lot, or to the point that they stop working completely after that and work for themselves. I think that's a really good advice. Be your own boss, and then don't have that cycle of trauma in your company. So I think that's amazing. And when I was doing a bit of research about workplace trauma, it sort of went into two directions. One was basically general trauma that we experience through the people that you work with, whether it's your bosses, your colleagues, and stuff like that. But something I found quite interesting was this video about some specific occupations, like the nature of the job gives them trauma. And we have one video we'd like to show everybody. I think let's pull that video up and show you what do we mean by that. Yeah.
It's the most important job in Facebook, and it's the worst, and no one cares about it. Every day you will see things that shock you, traumatizing stuff. Beheadings, child pornography, animal abuse. You become like a machine. With this hand, the next button, and this button, yes or no. So you click, next, decide, next, decide.
What was the worst kind of content you had to see?
I would definitely go with child pornography, because you get to see like even a 6-month-old baby being raped. Also terrorism. You see very graphic images of blood and terrorist attacks.
this work is hard. But I will say that the graphic content, that sort of content, is a small fraction of what reviewers might see. Increasingly, we've been able to use technology to review and remove some of the worst content that you might see somebody upload to Facebook.
What effect did the pressure and the things you were seeing have on you and your home life?
I had nightmares a couple of times. I remember one, for example, people jumping from a building. I don't know why. And I remember people, instead of helping the people jumping, they were just taking photos and videos. And I remember catching one little girl and crying with this little girl, and I woke up crying. And I remember blood everywhere and people just doing videos.
What did you think of the way the company supported you and supported your colleagues?
The company didn't support us at all. I think we complained almost every day. Almost every day, because we had problems. We didn't like the things we were looking at.
We know it's difficult. We're committed to giving them what they need to do this job well. And if they're ever uncomfortable at work, there are counseling resources for them, and they can be shifted to work on a different type of content. It's important to us to keep our community safe, but it's also very important to us to support our
All right. I'm shaking my hand, sorry.
Yeah, that's a tough video to watch, but not as tough as what they're watching. So, I mean, Patrick, what do you think about these kind of occupations?
Well, it just happened to know that I have some clients doing exactly this for that company, and they have centers in Malaysia, actually, and in India also, not only Berlin or in Ireland. And so I know in prime hand with a few of my clients exactly what they feel, and we've been following up on clinical psychology for a while, trying to repair their emotion, which is, I can tell you, one quit the job and become a teacher. You want to interact with people, and the other one is really sitting on it and thinking. It's very tough. It's very tough. What's the worst? I mean, the job is tough. But if I had to make a one-on-one with Mark Zuckerberg to say, can you kill the beast? That I will say. Because as long as you open the door to anything, any people will do these kind of things. The internet was created, I don't know what the internet was created in the first place, but I'm telling you, only 4 or 5% are what we see, and 95% on the darknet. And the darknet, you have even more of that. We created a communication worldwide so we can put all our gruesome feelings into the internet, which is 95% of the time. Is that what we created?
Yeah, it's crazy as well, because there is this, that power anonymity, like people don't know you, gives you that freedom as well to do these kind of things. But coming back to workplace trauma, I mean, there was once I was reading and watching this documentary as well on how certain refugees in the UK, when they are brought in, they are put in jobs that are the worst. So things like putting them in slaughterhouses for them to go and slaughter animals and livestock and stuff like that. And that had a detrimental problem, right? Because it changes the way your brain is wired. This center for empathy and feelings gets shut down so completely, and they don't feel anything after that. And when they see people getting hurt or murdered or killed, it doesn't affect them either. So they're completely desensitized to that notion of harm and pain. And that's very scary, right? How time can really alter the brain like that. Yeah. And I think, sorry, you were going to say something.
I don't think, I mean, we can get used to whatever violence we see or hear or feel. It doesn't mean it looks like we become desensitized. Actually, what's happening is like we're pushing this feeling in the core of our being. And eventually, it's a bit like we become all this carbon combined become a diamond. You know, when you combine diamond very
Yeah.
hard, pressed from carbon become a diamond. Well, it's a nice example to say that our feeling combined and compressed become not diamond, become anger. And then
Yes.
we express anger in all kind of panel and diversity and all kind of, you know, serving and sauce, because, and we don't even know where this anger comes from, because for years it was combined and compiled on top of each other, and we fail to either address it or respond to it. And then it becomes pure anger, and people cannot control the anger anymore. And then to unpack that anger, it's almost impossible.
And I think I'm going to ask you a question, based on the clients you have or people you've met or even yourself, things don't usually happen in vacuum, right? We're humans. Like you say, there is always a piling that happens.
It's
And
always
that
that, yeah.
anger, yeah, and that anger gets like transcended across your units in your life, not just workplaces. So for example, I always have this mindset, like if my boss is really mean to me, something must have happened at home, or something must be happening in his life. I always make excuses for this kind of behavior. But what do you think? Like, is there a circle or a cycle that's happening that when people sort of show that kind of attitudes, that causes trauma?
It's difficult to answer in one question because we're all different also, and we have a
Yeah.
different experience in life. But usually, basically, a trauma is the incapability or incapacity to the overwhelming of emotional. So we overwhelmed emotionally, and that is how this is the definition of trauma: the overwhelming of an emotion. So in case there's many cases, and roughly I can think of at the back of my head, like just some people pursue some business. They have a goal. They want to be there at a certain time. They want to have this stone. They want to milestone. They want to go all the way to what they think, and they don't care who is in the way. And so they think the team will do whatever it is for. It's like a pelerinage. They're on their way to success, and no one can stop me. And my team will have to support me 100% no matter what it takes, because I am going to the top. So that's one thing that I've seen, whether it's your own company or whether it's your management within a company, or if you just start in a company and you have a big plan for yourself to go to the top. It doesn't matter who's in the way. Some people will do whatever it takes, and they don't mind traumatizing people or stressing people as much as they can for their own goal. So that is selfishness. So you completely, you don't care what happened to others, basically. There's also people victim of those people, that along the way gets pushed and pushed again, and time again, and they are traumatized by the way they've been treated. And if there's more than one of those people or in different positions or different places, then you always, because you're the nice person, you be always pushed away because you're trying to be nice and help. And usually the nice people end last on this thing, which is bad, because being nice is actually much better than to be selfish. But then you get played and used and abused, and eventually also they're trying to desensitize themselves and say, I'm not helping anybody anymore. And you turning a good person into a bad person, suddenly. So, and the world has become detached this way. In some countries where fear, so together with fear, so it's fear of relationship. You've been hurt before. You don't want to have or you're very careful with the next one. You've been hurt at work. You are careful who you choose to work with, or you just don't want to work with anybody else anymore. Not my case. But I find convenient. I'm not afraid of working. But yes, I'm not afraid. But they won't take me either, because now that I got enough stability in my life, then I can say straight away, I'm doing what? Sorry, for what purpose? I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
You won't work with me, and they know that from the interview. They know that,
That's
like, okay,
right.
it will be difficult. I am not being difficult. I'm being open and voice my opinion that I am not going through this again.
Yeah. And I really, really agree. I mean, if we don't learn from experiences and use it well, that pretty much not healthy, right? And of course, there's this whole spectrum of how we cope with trauma. Like, for example, there are people who completely shut down. They are not gonna, step into the workplace anymore. They're just gonna not do anything that's related to the trauma that they've experienced. And then there are those who use that experience like you, and you are able to voice it out and say that, hey, I actually know what you're trying to do. You're trying to demand and conquer, right? You want employees that follow what you want to do, but I don't think this is right. So I think there is a whole spectrum of how we deal with trauma. But before we go into that application of how do we overcome it and use the lessons wisely and healthily, I think we'll do a very quick game sort of, or a quick discussion as well, so that our audience can also answer what they think of these things. So I'm not sure whether those who are watching here have seen red light green light from the Squid Game, which is super famous right now. It's everywhere. It's Instagram, like yeah, it is a very, very violent movie. Yeah, but I love gore, so I love it. So we're gonna do red flags, green flags about some of the statements that we have here about work or things that we do at work. And please feel free and comment and join us in and tell us what do you think about these statements, right? So let me begin with the first one. Basically something called a scope creep. Basically when management or your employer is asking you to do something outside of your contract or your job description, right? Asking you to do more work. Is that a red or a green flag?
You're asking me? Or you asking
yes,
everybody?
and also the audience, everybody,
Yes.
including you.
It's for me. I would say it's more like a red flag, but not necessarily, depending on what it is. If you ask you to check on his trying to buy a new car, then yes, it's not my job. And could you check the price of a new car because I'm planning to do that on the weekend with my wife? Well, I'm sorry, not my job. But if it's something that it could be related to, but not directly, it's depending how much time I have and depending on how nice I am and how nice it is to me, because it's a favor, basically. So it could be also a good way. It could be a green flag that, okay, I'm making a favor and we're building a relationship.
Yes.
Outside of work, because I'm helping you on a personal matter. So that's why I'm debating between a red and a green, because it could be also used as a green flag to say, okay, well, let's do that once and let's see how it goes to develop this relationship that I need, to have friends and to work better.
Yeah, I think I agree. As always, psychologists, we love the word depends, because everything depends on what's happening at that point of time. And I agree, it can be both good and bad. The bad is if it happens all the time and
Yeah.
they are pretty much overworking you for no reason of like maybe rising to the top, giving you a better job title, those kind of things. That's a big question to ask. Like, why am I getting so much work on top of what's already given? Is it meant for me to, rise up, right? In terms of a career path? That's a big question. If a fresh graduate or somebody's being overworked, that's my first question. Is there a plan for you for this overworking or that overload of work? And have you communicated this with your manager or the person who's giving you a job? But I think it becomes great when there is a conversation, like you mentioned, the conversation and the relationship building. So if my manager, yeah.
It's mutual. If the favor always go one way, and then when you have a favor back, it doesn't go this way, then it's not a favor anymore. It's just an order, and that doesn't work.
Yeah, correct. I agree with that. So I'll move on to the next statement. Leaders or managers who multitask during meetings or one-on-one conversations. Is that a red or a green flag?
To me, well, first of all, if you're a leader, I would almost want to answer by Star Wars. We're talking about movies, and I like Star Wars. Like, be mindful of the present. Sorry, be mindful of the future, but not at the expense of the moment.
Yeah.
All right. So you're a leader. You have many things. You're thinking what's happening next and next. Okay. Be mindful of the future and what's happening. That's what you have to do, but not at the expense of the present. You're in a meeting right now. Your attention should be right here. Because that's what the people. You also ask other people to be there. Like we're talking. I made a commitment to talk to you today, right?
Yes.
I am not doing something else.
Correct.
It doesn't mean I have nothing else to do. I say that when the time we're talking, I am going to concentrate on what we're talking here today. If I cannot commit to that thing, then what can I do? So as a leader, you ask people to join you, whether it's physical or online, and then you doing something else. This is rude.
Yes, I agree.
And if you cannot concentrate on something else, if you concentrate on something else, that means you also show that they're not important. So what's the meeting for?
Yeah. I think that's really true. I would say this is a red flag, especially when they reprimand you for doing the same thing that they're doing. I think that's a complete red flag, right? This is like super going back to high school system where the teacher tells you not to do something, but they're doing themselves. It's completely a red flag for me. I think it comes down to that level of respect, right? You respect your employees and your employees respect you, and you respect the time that is dedicated to a certain purpose. Okay, moving on to the third thing we have here is delayed reporting, right? So delayed reporting, that's a very broad thing, but maybe I'll add in like delayed reporting without reason. So for example,
Yeah.
if you are my boss and I'm supposed to report to you every Friday, instead of Friday I reported to you on Monday, is that a red or a green flag?
Again, unless your mother is in hospital, it's again, and it could be a good reason, or you have a car accident, something, I don't know, that's fine, but it's a one-time deal, not every Friday. So again, it's respect. You're talking just respect just earlier. Let me remind again, I always like to remind us the 3 steps of human relationship. Respect, number 1. No respect, we're not even talking. Caring, that's what we're trying to get, so care for these people, care for their time, respect their time and also care for them. And trust, eventually. People ask, how can I build trust? You cannot build trust by pressing a button. You have to start from the beginning, and the beginning is respect. In many, many relationships I've seen, respect is lacking. And when you have a respect, I trust you. No, you don't respect me. So you don't have the first step, but you think it's like, and then after that is love, just in case it's a love relationship. So when people, I extend that to, I love you, you don't, because you don't even know my name. But that's okay.
Right.
If you say, So start with the beginning. You want to love me? Absolutely. Well, start with respect. That would be would be the first.
Yeah, totally agree.
And that is this like this. If I'm here on Friday because it's my time to report, and you show me that you constantly not there, you also show me that I'm not important. You don't respect my time, you don't respect my commitment, and you don't care. So you don't respect my time, you don't care, and so how can I trust you?
Yeah, and I think I'll pick one last statement on that, right? Micromanaging, right? This is always a big issue. Everybody hates micromanagers and stuff like that. What do you think of that?
Well, I'll give you a quick example from micromanaging from my brother. I think it's a funny example. When he started learning to drive, he was driving, and as you know, it's a driving thing, but you make mistakes, you're driving, and you have the instructor next to you, which have all the control except the wheel. But he can control the pedal, the thing, the accelerator, the things. And he was always trying to drive, because my brother was a bad driver to start with, I guess. And when he was turning, my brother was turning too much on one side, and automatically the instructor always reached out to the wheel to counterbalance the thing. And one day my brother had enough. And when he was about to turn, when he saw the hand of the instructor coming to the wheel, he let the wheel go. So the instructor was used to fighting against my brothers trying to turn, And then this time there was no resistance. So he turned so dramatically, he crashed the car. And they were both in the car, crashing the car. And I said, what did you do? And my brother said, well, you want to drive. But don't do this on my time. You want to drive, but don't let me pay for it. So that's micromanagement. You want to do, you're supposed to teach me, but you're doing everything yourself. You want to drive? Go drive your own car. That's fine. But don't do it on my time.
Yeah, I think that's really true. But at the same time, I want to disagree with you as well.
Okay.
I've had managers who would tell me, because if I think about my fresh graduate years, my manager used to micromanage me, and I being the fresh graduate, I'd be like, oh my god, my boss horrible. She micromanages me every single thing. I need to tell her and stuff like that. But at one point, she did ask me a question that until today I ask myself: why is my boss micromanaging me in the first place? What am I doing that's making her micromanage me? For example, is it because the quality of the work I'm doing is not up to her standards? Or am I not reporting fast enough? Like, all these questions come into my head as well. So right now, if let's say Roshan's in the chat actually, he says, enjoying your conversation. Yeah, anyways, if Roshan were to ask me, and micromanage me, right? The first question is I would ask why to myself first, right? I check myself as the employee. Then if I feel like it is not right for him to micromanage me because I think I'm up to that standard, then I have to have that conversation with him, right? Maybe he's seeing something that I'm not seeing. At the same time, I might be seeing something he's not seeing. So that's it's always a depending
Don't
situation.
confuse micromanagement and guidance.
Yeah,
Okay,
correct.
if you're
Yeah.
fresh and you have a guidance, you actually, it's positive. You need guidance
Mm.
from your management because you're fresh, you're new, you might, obviously, and it's welcome. Now, it doesn't mean why you're here in the first place. Did I hire you so I can do your job? Then that I do it myself, it's quicker. So if I hire you, it's because I trust in your ability to do this job, even if you need guidance. So guidance is welcoming. It's welcome in the beginning. After that, if you go too far, that's micromanagement. This is when they don't know how to lay off. Same thing. You were driving the car, you new driver, you don't know how to drive, you make
Yeah.
mistakes. Eventually you get better, you let the person be autonomous. And if you don't do that, if you always drive, then you never learn.
Yeah,
That's why.
correct. And when I ask those questions and look into micromanagement, that's when I realize this is micromanagement because I am doing what is expected of me and doing well actually compared to the rest.
Mhm.
So that's my question. Like I ask a lot of questions to my boss as well. What can I do better? What can I do better? And these kind of tough questions as well. And all the person is doing is still doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right? So that's when I know, oh, this is not great. This is a red flag already. All right, so we've done the red and green flags. I think we're going to move into another question, right? And before we go into a question, I think we have a few comments coming in, and I would like to call them out. I think Esther has a question. She says that could it be the parenting style or upbringing that transfer to how they lead the company? Yeah, I think this is the question on we're talking about whether it's a cycle. Yeah, what are your thoughts about that, Patrick?
Definitely, it plays a role. I mean, the way you grew up. I mean, we repeat. We know that when we're born, we accept the world as presented to us. So whatever the family or whatever the condition or the country or the political system you're born in, before you know better, this is your norm. And even if you know there's something else, either better or worse, the norm is still yours, the one you grew up with. It's very difficult to get away from the norm, even if you mentally make an effort to go away. In reflexes, in things, what's in life, we tend to come back to what we used to, what we call norm. But the norm is different from everyone. So yes, parenting play a fantastic role, of course, in bringing a human being, and they play a fantastic role in how they're going to become leaders, managers, workers, parents themselves. In their bringing, in the parenting, there's also religion, there's also the political system they live in, there's also the tradition, there's also
Our education as well. Yeah.
culture. Yes, exactly. And but this is we shouldn't fear that. This is the rainbow colors of the planet Earth with all the people in it, and every color is fantastic, and all combined they become white. So I mean, not as a color, but yes, they all combine to one color. Not white as a
Yes.
white. I didn't mean that.
Yes.
But they can combine. That's what I'm trying to say. They can combine, and they can also. They're beautiful by themselves, and they're also beautiful all combined. That's what I'm trying to say. And
Yeah, and I think that's really true, right? Like we say, as a human being, we're complex, right? Everything is mixed up together to create you, and that's how it works. And I like it as well because you get to see all the colors and how people combine certain things together and flourish as well. I love that.
it's
I'm
combining the
gonna
colors that make even better. Like I remember like when I first the basic colors to my kids, and she tried to make green, and she didn't have the green crayon. So I say, well, you have yellow, good. You have blue, make it green. And she was amazed that those two combined make the third colors. And this is what the beauty is about human being. Let's combine our colors. Let's not be afraid of the colors.
Yeah, correct. There's a few more comments coming in. Roshan is saying enjoying your conversation. Sashi says he'll not succumb to the Squid Game pressure. Yes, that show is crazy right now. He also says thanks, Patrick, Andrea, for talking about this. Some of these statements are often unspoken or unwritten understandings for a newbie at work. Is this something they should bring up? If so, how? Right. So if you're quite new at work and you see these red flags or things that's happening that doesn't sit well with you, how do you bring it up to HR, for example?
Well, I mean, first of all, the HR has to be open. You know, if the door is always closed, you cannot.
Yeah.
You know, so it's, you know, how many times you say, okay, I'm going to talk to this person, but the person is either always busy, or you have to make an appointment. Yeah, we're on in 6 months from now. 6 months from now, sorry. Then by the time you know, I mean, it's, again, conversation is a dual, is a mutual conversation. There has to be one willing to talk and one willing to listen. So we always blame things. Yeah, but you didn't say anything. Well, maybe the reason they don't say anything is also maybe that the receiver was not ready to receive. You know, so it really is that, and it could be just because they're busy. But again, if you're too busy, if you're in HR, sorry, but if you're too busy to talk to your employee, then you miss the point of being an HR. Because in HR, H, if I remember, means human, right?
Yes.
Hopefully. And and so if you miss the point of being human, then you miss the point, you miss a career, then might as well be a banker. And you take numbers, you know, and then fine.
Okay.
So that's the
Alright.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also a tough thing, right? I mean, in Malaysia, for example, if you think about how the role of HR has been in the previous maybe 10, 20 years ago, HR is always siding the employer, right? As much as they say, yes, we're taking care of our employees, most of the time they side in the employer's shoes. So even if somebody goes up to tell them, they would sort of try to spin it around and say that it's your problem, you got to work on certain things, yada, yada, yada. And that's bad. And there are a few more comments I'd like to read. You know, Esther says he likes how you shared that quote, you know, be mindful of the future, but not at the expense of the present. Wilson, thank you, Wilson, for joining us. He said, respect, listen, trust. Thanks, Patrick. And there's another question, you know, is there bosses who should listen to their employees? Because one's micromanaging could be another's love and care. Now, this is a classic example of people who are in traumatic environments, right? They sort of turn that micromanagement into, oh, my boss cares about what I do, right? Have you seen that happening as well in workplaces, Patrick? Yeah.
So those boss need to listen to your employee? Well, yeah, they do. If not, they do it by themselves. If you need people to grow your business, it's because not only you need them, you need for a reason. They have different tasks and conditions and skills they bring in. Not only skills for the job, also interpersonal skills. They have so human skills they're going to bring to you. And all of it, if you have all this team around you and you're not here to listen to what they have to say, you BMW and you want to make a new design car, you take the best designer in a mechanic engineering car, the big designer, you hire the person to make the new BMW, and the guy came, or the person, the girl came with a new design and said, no, I'm not listening to you. Then why did you employ that person being the best designer? Many companies also have removed. It was I don't know what's happening today because it's difficult to know what's happening now in the workplace. But it was a strategy to remove the best people out of the competition. So you were taking the best designer for yourself. It cost you money, but you were undermining the skills. Not so much because you didn't need that, but mainly it was to prevent the competitors to have that person. So, and since you didn't need that person, you undermine that person just to take it away. So that's one of the things in the solution. What we can do, if you're an employee, make sure you very highly in demand and employable, or make yourself employable. Because if you know you can leave anytime and you will have 10 offers by this afternoon, then you will stay at your work for a longer while. This is the thing. If you know you can leave, you might consider staying. If you know you're stuck and you have no other choice, you will stay by default. And that's how the conflict starts.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point and a good advice as well. Thank you, Patrick. And now we're going to talk a bit more on application wise, right? So there's always two perspectives as usual, as the employer and as the employee. As an employer, how do we avoid causing traumatic experiences or a traumatic environment, right? A place that breeds trauma, right? How do we not create that kind of environment?
As an employer.
Yes, correct.
All right. So as an employer, probably the best thing to do is to be aware of certain work condition, certain way of talking, and certain way of managing can be harmful to some people. So being aware of that, it's not one size fits all. It's not like you're not tough enough to be with us. There's not such a thing as tough enough. Everybody can be a fit if you fit them. Everyone can be welcome if you welcome them. You go to a party, they're all having a party. You arrive a bit late. You arrive, there's no chair, there's no food. No one talk to you, and then you in a closet behind the toilet. You feel welcome? You're at the party, but you're not at the party. So, and then you say, well, you cannot blame the person. If you welcome more people, you need to make sure that everyone is welcome. That's, as an employer, this is what you're supposed to do, to welcome the people and make them feel welcome first. Secondly, you need to be open all the conversation, because they might have suggestions, they might have concern, they might have problem, and it could be just an adjustment thing. If you address the problem straight away, it might be just a chit chat and then you adjust and everybody's happy. Most of the time, it's the way it works. If you let the problem go as a snowball, then it snowballs into something very big. Then it goes, before going back to you, to the employer, it goes to all the employee. Everyone is against you basically, and for something that was so little to start with, just because you were not there. It's difficult to be a leader. They say everyone can be a leader. I will say everyone can learn to be a leader. But it's like a musician. I see leaders and musicians. Everyone can play an instrument? Yes, they can. But everyone will be great at it? No, they're not. Some have a natural talent and some don't have. And so I know the MBA trying to say, like, you study, you be the fantastic manager. You study, you will know music. Yes. And you will probably know how to play something. It doesn't mean you be Wagner. Absolutely not, because there's how many of those there are in the planet. And people that sometimes don't study management or don't study music are actually greater than those actually been studying. There's no... It needs both, and so just studying or just is not enough. You need to have a passion. So if you want to become a leader because you're dreaming, or your parents always want to be the boss, don't do that on somebody else's account. If you want to be the boss, because if you want to be a leader, be the captain at the Titanic. The captain of the Titanic, make sure that as much people left the boat, and then he stayed and died of shame. He was on his boat. He was even sleeping when thing happened, But anyway, as a captain, he took the full responsibility for all the death of those people, and he had the decency to also sacrifice himself, not save himself first.
Yeah, and I really, it's very interesting, right? Yeah. Yes. And not a lot of people can do that, right? Some leaders would take the first boat out of the Titanic,
right.
or the
first class to Mars.
Class.
We've seen that recently. They're going around Mars with 5 people, costing a budget of Belgium,
Yeah, that's
just
crazy.
for 20 minutes in space, and just to have champagne on top of that. Okay, we're great for you. What about us?
Yeah, and speaking about as the employer, we have to create that environment that's welcoming, that is safe. There's this something called trauma cycle that we like to quickly share, as well as an infographic on what is the trauma cycle. So for example, there is a trigger, right? And there is a re-traumatize. That means experiences that constantly traumatize you again and again and again. So similar triggers or a similar environment. And then it goes into reaction and blame, where, for example, people might say that, oh, it's my fault, right? That's self-blame. Or for example, it's the boss's fault. It's this horrible company. That's the other kind of blame. And then it goes into coping and avoidance. And this part here is a big chunk, because people cope with trauma very differently. Some people shut it off, some people suppress it, repress it. All these kind of defense mechanisms come into play. Some people even make humor out of it to cope with trauma, and eventually, hopefully, you'll come back under control. So I think this may help people to understand how trauma actually works in a cycle, and if that cycle is not broken, then it's going to keep coming back again as the trigger comes back to the first one.
I want to emphasize. Sorry, I want to emphasize two kinds of trauma. It could be one traumatic event, one-time event, let's say a car accident, one-time event. And it could be, and most likely, the trauma is a combination of what happened over time, being undermined, being ignored, being not addressed, and after a while, you pile up, as I said before, you pile up all these things, and it become hard. It become a core that is very difficult to unfold. You also, and we're trying to move on and to push that bad feeling back. This is what life because we're trying to go forward no matter what happened to us. This is instilled in us. The love of life is stronger than the love of trauma. So we're trying to survive regardless of what happened to us. However, we bring all these baggages with us, and when the baggage is too heavy, then we stop right in the track. It's very important also that we revisit our trauma now and again. We work on it and let go of what we don't need anymore. Come back to a person, or just it's very difficult because sometimes you can go back in time and change what happened. You cannot change the event. You can change how do you take it. I would say in psychology, life is 10% what happened to you and 90% how you take it.
Yeah, correct. And how we see it as well. Yeah. And speaking of that, we have something called a trauma recovery, which is quite interesting. It is a metaphor or analogy of an avocado, right? So I want to pull that up for you and see what you think about this, right? So this is a trauma recovery in an avocado. So the outer peel is what people see on the outside. Often some bumps or otherwise fine. So we always say we're fine, we're fine. And it goes in a squishy goo, which are mainly all the feelings, right? All the mental health symptoms, somatic symptoms, triggers, dissociation, coping mechanisms that you see. And lastly, we'll have the pit, which is actually the real traumatic memories. And also, I like this part here, beliefs about self or world based on trauma and shame. Yeah, so what do you think about this very cute illustration?
It's very cute. First, I love avocado, so I like it. But also, he also compiled again. It's pretty much true like us. All the trauma combined become hard, and the pit is the only part that is hard. It works the same. I mean, nature works the same, whether it's with us or whether it's with element. We're made of element, and we can see, as I say, I was talking earlier about how carbon become a diamond by compressing the carbon so hard that it become diamond. That this is all the hard parts are made of. And so this is us, in the mind, and we have the skin, like the skin of the avocado, to really cover it up. And some are very, very good in covering up, and we don't know what's going inside, especially not in the core. This is very hard. But by the only work, I mean, as a clinical psychologist also, I mean, I can help people visiting their core, but I cannot change it for them. Only a person can visit the core inside, because only that person knows exactly what's going on and can bring it back to light and archive it, make it something better with it. Let it go. Let it go is probably the only way to do that. Now, if you grow on the avocado, if you grow that there's no more flesh, only the skin and a hard pit inside, some people can become like this. So it looks the same, but it's just hard. And there's no substance anymore. Don't let this happen to you. Actually, it's good to have a core, but don't let the core take the whole flesh.
Yeah. And how do you do that, right? How do you protect yourself from turning into a hardcore avocado, a complete hard piece?
I would say if you see something unfair or something that is not aligning with what you believe, and you think, sorry to use these words, then there's a clever way to answer that. If you see it and the person don't see it, let's say you have an argument, okay, and you said, okay, well, we can argue forever, or I can let it go because it's easier. That's the intelligent attitude compared to and the other person just carry on arguing. But if you see a way out, if you think you're clever, then use that cleverness to say, okay, well, let's call it a shot. Let's call it a day and let's go. Because if not, we're going to make it hard, not only for that person, also for myself. Arguing requires energy, and that energy eventually goes all over your being. So unless it's a life and death argument that you have to take, if you can let go of something, or find something else. But let go there's many ways of letting go. This is the way to become as another movie and another person I really admire in this plans, Bruce Lee, be like water. Water can be very hard, but also can be just fluid, and also can be vapor. Be water in all of its form. Be hard when you have to, but be mainly fluid. So it can go everywhere and disappear from anywhere. Your mind has to be as flexible as possible. When you become rock solid, then you're not flexible anymore. And that's where you have problem with the rest of the world also.
Yep, and I really, really agree. Right, I like that quote as well. Be like water. When I was younger, I didn't understand it. I was like, is that like because water usually flows according to the spaces
Mhm.
there is. And then over time, when I was reading a bit more as I got older, I was like, oh yeah, water shapes things over time. That makes sense a lot, right? And that's really crucial in the relationships we have as well. And I think coming to the next, the second last question that I have for you, a lot of organizations at this point of time are outsourcing therapy for employees as well. Because they I mean, if you look back at like HR, I think you will know better than I. Initially they have their own in-house counselors or therapists, and then eventually they see that wasn't working because everybody has this front up, because what if that counselor may report to your organization, even if it's a report as simple as that, it's going to cause a lot of outreach. And they started outsourcing therapy for employees. And do
Yeah.
you think that's a great move, right? Do you think every organization should have that at hand?
I would say so. I'm debating with that because, as you know, I'm North American, and we start 20 years earlier than you in Asia.
Yes.
And we have data that EAP also doesn't work. Okay, so I'm sorry to break it to the people doing this kind of thing, but EAP work for 10 to 15% of the employee. It doesn't work for 85% of them. And we have enough years and data to know that. So you're right. The inside person, there was no trust because they were afraid of reporting. But that fear is not so much different. It's a little bit better, but not so much better. Also, the EAP program being so cheap for therapists because they're selling things. No therapist really wants to be part of this thing, or just student, because it's their first job. So the result, you don't get the best therapist in EAP because they're paying so low, the therapist, that I wouldn't go and do EAP at the rates they pay, right? So you get the newbies, you get the students just to get a bit of experience. So at the end, the 10-50% of employees that go outsourcing and do therapy, they also don't get the help. So 85% doesn't trust it still, and the 15 that doing this doesn't get the help because either couldn't help them properly. Plus, limited in time. In America, 3 sessions per year. 3 sessions per year, 3 hours. So tell me about your life. You have 3 hours. Oh, and not all today. Huh? Let's do one January, let's do one in June and one in November. By the time you come back to me, I completely forgot about you. And by the time we come back to what we catch on, you just lost the hours. This is the problem also. So what I believe a better solution than EAP and online is still in outsourcing. I like that. I agree with you that sourcing will work better. However, the outsourcing has to be a hybrid. I'm not working for the boss, but I'm working with you guys, exactly like consulting. I might come and visit the workplace and talk one-on-one to people, but my office is not there. And I also go home and do things. A blending and being upfront. I'm not working neither for you, neither for I'm working for you
The
first.
neutral ground, yeah.
Exactly. To be neutral. And for that, saying it is not enough. I have to prove it.
Show
Now,
you.
if you say
Yeah.
something to me that you would like things to change in an organization, and you see within 2-3 months, and I went to HR, and the HR followed my advice because that's what they pay me for, and I have enough people to report that this will be changed, and you see the change, next time I talk to you, you know I can make the change happen. So you come back to me. This is not called EAP. This is called Organizational Psychologist. This is why I am. But no one knows about us.
Not enough
So
yet.
they go to HR and they go to AP, big program things, but they don't come to us. They don't come to organizational psychologists. This is exactly what we were created about 30 years ago, 50 years ago. This is what we are. This is exactly what and we understand psychology and we understand the workplace. But
Yeah.
EAP, you got a clinical psychologist that might not understand what your workplace is. Also might not understand, you're talking with somebody on the other side of the planet that might not understand the problem with Malaysia and the cultural difference between Malaysia and all the ethnicity in Malaysia, and don't understand what you're bringing is. You, Andrea, from just your name means something to me and I can understand because I know Malaysia quite well now after 2 years being with, and I understand maybe what you've been through or not, whatever the difference is in Malaysia, and then somebody from America will not understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's really true, right? At the end of the day, I foresee that eventually organizational psychologists should be packed in every organization, especially
And you should
organizations
be
that,
included in every
yes,
package
correct,
of
it's
company.
part.
You need
Yeah.
one per company, but they rather give that to HR. And HR, they train. Have you seen trainering? And not to diminish the HR industry, but they're not psychologists. I'm so sorry, and they're not ergonomic. They don't study what we study. The complete. We need HR, absolutely. We need to combine. This is that pitch. That's pitched with most of company I have to. They don't understand why. But we have HR already. You're
It's
asking a
different.
car mechanic to fix you a nice meal. And maybe the cook, the mechanic can cook, why not? And maybe you're lucky, but he's not a cook, he's not a chef.
Yeah, correct. They are related and they should be related, but it's a very different role. I think that's the key.
Very
And I
different
think,
role.
yeah, and there's one question on the chat. I think we would like to address this before we close our show out. Eva asked that what are some practical ways to help overcome the traumatized employees apart from the people department providing consultation, like you mentioned, right? Or psychologists or even counselors and stuff like that. She said that sometimes it could be also due to their unspoken policies at a workplace, such as must respond to bosses despite being busy, or their off days, and those kind of things as emergencies. So what are your thoughts? How can we as the employees overcome that trauma, besides letting go of these feelings and stuff like that?
So, Eva, thank you for asking the question. And from both of my heart, my best answer is it will change in time in Asia, because Asia had we the white people have given a culture a long time ago. You still have a culture, so this culture still hold the society together. And within this culture in Asia, Southeast Asia, there's a way of not talking or not expressing your feeling too well. This changing as the young generation wants to express their feeling. It will change, and it will change within the people, and so eventually within the organization. But it's you guys a little bit not behind in terms of behind, not mentally behind, but because the culture was so strong. And it's not dissolving. I'm not saying we have to dissolve the culture, but we didn't have such a strong culture, and we lost it. So suddenly everyone without a culture protection can say up to front, even arguing, even being rude. The English language have become extremely rude compared to other language in the world. The F word is every sentence in America. Every sentence. It doesn't mean anything anymore, even. Because it's the way. So I know it looks like I'm not answering your question, but it's important to understand that you guys in Asia and in Southeast Asia, you have a culture still to go, and please don't lose that. It doesn't mean, but a culture is not a barrier. A culture is a nice color to mix with other colors to make new colors. That's what a culture is all about. But with a blending of politics, it has become sort of barrier. My culture, don't talk to mine. In the workplace, it's not so much difference, because what is a workplace? It's a blending of all those people together. And yes, there's a policy of like, I don't want to hear. And also, there's also an old-fashioned way of being the boss. Now, that old-fashioned way is about to die. The dinosaurs are about to disappear, and a new race of, a new type of, let's say, a new type of management will come. I believe that. I want to believe that, and I think it's coming. It's coming quicker than we thought, because COVID accelerated that. So right now, at this moment, we have a very confused workplace with pandemic and COVID that have reshuffled the cards. We have a blending of very young people that want to express themselves and then want to talk about their mental health, or environment and things. And we have also elder generation that's not used to talk. And usually the elders are the one holding the thing, and usually the youngest just join in. So the blending is happening, but it's always been this way, except this time, the generation gap is further stretched than before. Because before, as a young person, my model was you. I'm trying to become like you. Where today, into this place, I want to become more like me, not like you. And that's a big difference in change shift, in mentality shift around the planet, not only in Southeast Asia. Once it's enough balancing elder generation things, and then we understand that it will be more balanced. So at the moment, yes, we're in transition. We have still this need to talk and things and to express yourself, and you have still sometimes a door still blocked because it's not the way it was. Because when they were young, they didn't express themselves. So why should you? But this is what we're doing with wellness. This is what we need people, and the talk we're doing right now. This is what we need to bring, that thing that it's okay to talk. It's not as a manager, as the only unspoken. I know. I mean, I'm very outspoken. I'm very direct, and I live in Asia. And believe me, I have sometimes people classify me as rude. Because, and I'm not rude, I don't use any rude words, I don't insult people, I just say what it is. And I realize that people would rather talk about anything around it except the right subject. And every time they escape, I catch them up, so about the subject, and they escape, so about the subject. And eventually, when I say it's safe, it's okay, you can tell me, they eventually open up, but it takes a longer time because they're not used to. You have to make them feel safe. The workplace is safe. It should be a safe place, not only safe because there's no machinery killing you, but also because it's safe, psychologically speaking, safe. This is what I mean by safe. It has to be safe. When you're home, normally you can talk and express yourself and be yourself. You want to be in pajamas and watch TV, do what you want. Well, it has to be almost the same now, the workplace. First of all, we're working from home, but also, and why not working in pajama? Why not? But also, it has to be safe. Psychologically safe when you talk to your manager, and the manager has to understand that he has to make a room for that. And right now we're in transition, and it will come. But yes, thank you for your question, because the practical way, the only thing is like, if you're a manager, Eva, and you want to be open for, then leave the room open. Always leave. In the old farms in Europe, you used to have, when people go into dinner, they used to put an extra plate. They didn't expect anybody, just in case. But because sometime, maybe once a year, somebody get lost in the dark in the mountain of Norway, and they were coming back, and they saw the light of outside of your farm, and in the fog, in the cold, they were knocking, and there was always a bed ready and always a plate ready, even if most of the time no one came. There was always a bed for an eventual visitors. Be like this. If you're a manager, always have an extra plate on the table and an extra bed, because you never know who's going to be knocking.
And I love that, right? That kind of welcoming. You expect to welcome somebody. I think that's a very key thing about organizations as well. There are a few more questions, but I think we are running out of time. So I think
I got time if you have time.
Okay, cool. So let me take the last question, right? So Eva as well, she's putting a more specific example of gaslighting. So for example, the abuser who hold managerial roles or leadership roles, tries to convince their victims, which are their subordinates, that they're mentally unfit or too sensitive. How do these victims then resolve such challenges? For example, let me give you a tough question. We don't have any organizational psychologists in the company. How can the victim do that? Who do they speak to, or anything else that they can do on their end?
Let me read the question again, because this is a long question. Yes, exactly. So usually the human being responds with incompetence by blaming the others. There's a quick statement, but it's pretty much right. Instead of looking bad on me, it's a lot easier to make it bad on you. So what I do is like, I cannot fix the problem myself, although it's my role. So I'm saying you're not good enough. And I said, this is what we, Organizational Psychology, is trying to change by addressing things like, okay. So if I read the question again, people make them feel unfit, make them feel, and what happens is like they create more problems. So if they push too hard on the people saying it's because you're not good enough, then, and if they hear that more than one time in their career or in the day or in the month, then they're going to start to believe it. And maybe all it was like there was no room for them or no understanding to how to do that. Also, there's more than one way to do something. So I might help you in a way that you might not have seen coming, but this is what I bring on top of my skills that you saw in my resume. I also bring my personal skills. My way of talking, for example, is unique of me. I'm not the only one talking directly, but I have my way, and this is me talking. Now, you might not like that. Some people don't like that, but this is me. Asking me not to be me, I don't know how to do. I don't know how to not be me. I have to be me. But being me is not necessarily a bad thing. So whatever you bring in a plate, let's see what else you can bring. I think it's like I don't know how to say that without talking about politics. I don't want that, but I think most of the behavior we have been doing is also by reflecting. We on defense mode all the time. It's always us versus them. Whether it's at school, the student versus the student, then later is the boss versus the employee, then is the politics or the government versus the citizen. We always in a us versus them. And when the world understands that there's no us, there's no them and us, we just us all together. We see from the space, there's only one planet, there's no borders, no flag, there's nothing. It's too far to see that, and see from another galaxy, we don't even exist, we just don't even a point. So once we understand that vision of the world, that is just us all together, there's no versus against anybody, but this is too advanced. Like my grandmother say, I think we're not there yet. This is too advanced. And although the concept can be understood by many, when it comes to the thing, they still come back to the entrenched upbringing, Yeah, but I'm watching a series on Netflix, and it's this lady married this guy, and they love each other, they know for 2 years, and then they have a baby. And suddenly they realize that one is Christian and one is Jewish, and they don't know in which way they're going to bring the babies. And they start to arguing, although they were happy to get a baby together, and suddenly they realize that they're completely opposite. And what opposed them is not they don't love each other, it's not they don't want to make this family happening, it's suddenly their parents and their upbringing, both from Catholic and both from the Jewish, that haven't talked to each other for the last 2,000 years, refuse to make a blend, although these two people love each other. When we can let go of that BS, to be polite, then we only have loving people and happy family. And same thing with the boss, same thing with the thing. So if anybody, employee and employer, can let go of we are people. This is what you have. You're in a boat. Your ship, your company is a boat. You're going through a storm right now. You wish you could have Captain Jones and Captain. Look, you have what you have, and that will do. He has to do. Make the best of them. Don't blame them. They're here also on the boat with you. They also don't want to die. And they also want to make sure that everybody is alive. Use the skill of these people because they're all on the same boat. If you don't understand that, you shouldn't be a manager. That's what I believe.
Yeah. And I really, really completely agree with that, right? At the end of the day, for me, I get very irritated, right? I get very irritated when people tell me, oh, I don't know how to do this, or, I didn't learn it that way, that kind of thing. Like, they love to say this to me. And I'll be like, in more Malaysian slang, I'll be, learn lah. Like, just go and learn it, right? Go and practice it, then you will get there. But if you keep telling me don't know how, that's just an excuse, right? And I really
learn how.
Yeah.
Learning is not finished at school. You don't know how? Absolutely. Go and learn. Go find out. This is your role as manager, to upgrade your skill. It's not like we also live in society when we finish learning, then we're done learning. No, we're not done learning. We're learning until the end of our life.
Yes. Yeah, and it's tough, right? Especially, like you say, the dinosaurs, tough. Yeah, and this has been an exciting, really, really in-depth conversation, Patrick. Thank you so much for joining us. And as usual, we like to show you an amazing application that we use to create that kind of culture of transparency with managers and employees.
And I like this application.
Yay! So it's been Patrick approved. It's an organizational psychologist approved application.
Yes,
and it's called Budaya.
I know them well. I know them. They're from Bangkok, and I know that. And really, I like what they do. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Patrick. You have a great day. And for those who are watching, let us know what you like to talk about for us to look for in season 2 next year, actually. Can't believe it. The year is ending. But please, just drop in your thoughts and what you expect to see next year. And we're very excited to bring you more people and also bring back Patrick for a lot of other topics. So thanks again, everybody. Have a
After Halloween, it will be although something you can find to spook you out. So whenever you're ready to be spooked, let me know. I'm Halloween all year round.
Okay, all right, cool. It's nice to know that, right? So Patrick will spook you out in our next sessions. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great one. Let's have a look at Budaya.